Youth unemployment in advanced economies just hit 2.7 times the adult rate. That's the widest gap ever recorded. And it happened the exact same year AI adoption crossed 40% of large firms. This isn't a coincidence. It's the first generation in modern history whose career ladder was algorithmically deleted before they could climb it, and the data proves it. Look at this chart. From 2000 to 2019, youth unemployment moved in lockstep with total unemployment. When adults suffered, young people suffered proportionally. Normal recession behavior. Then 2020 hits, and something breaks. Adult unemployment recovers by 2022. Youth unemployment does not. In Spain, 1 in 3 people under 25 can't find work. In Italy, it's 22%. In France, 17%. Even in Germany, the poster child for stable employment, the youth-to-adult unemployment ratio hit its highest level since reunification. This isn't a business cycle. Business cycles are symmetric. This is a structural break. The economy recovered. Young people didn't. Here's the counter-argument you're about to hear in the comments. Gen Z just doesn't want to work. They're lazy. They're entitled. They'd rather live with mom. Fine. Let's test that with data. If Gen Z were opting out, labor force participation would drop because they chose to leave. But look at what actually happened. Youth labor force participation was already declining for 2 decades as more kids went to college. Then post-2020, in the US, UK, and Korea, it stagnates or falls further. While job applications per opening hit record highs, LinkedIn reports entry-level postings dropped 35% since ChatGPT launched. You cannot simultaneously be flooding applications and refusing to work. The lazy Gen Z narrative is statistically incoherent. They're not opting out, they're being locked out. Now compare youth unemployment directly against total unemployment across every major economy. Pre-2020, the ratio hovers between 1.8x and 2.2x. Predictable. Post-2020, it explodes. The UK ratio hits 3.1x. The US hits 2.9x. Even Japan, which barely has unemployment at all, saw its youth-to-adult gap double. This is the fingerprint of task automation, not demand shock. Recessions hurt everyone. AI hurts the people whose jobs were the training wheels. Junior analysts, entry-level coders, paralegals, copywriters. The exact roles Goldman Sachs identified as 46% exposed to generative AI. Adults kept their jobs because their tasks were already senior. Young people never got to start. Here's where it gets cruel. Governments didn't underinvest in this generation. They massively overinvested. Education spending as a share of GDP rose in almost every advanced economy from 2000 to 2020. Korea, France, and the UK all pushed past 5% of GDP. The US spends more per student than nearly any country on Earth. We told Gen Z, go to school, take the loans, get the credentials, and the jobs will follow. We spent trillions making that promise. Then we automated the jobs those credentials were supposed to unlock. This is the largest bait and switch in the history of human capital policy. And the receipts are on this chart. The final piece. Tertiary enrollment. Gen Z is the most college-educated cohort ever produced. In Korea, tertiary enrollment is above 98%. In the US, 88%. Spain, 91%. France, 68%. Every single one of these countries dramatically expanded university access after 2000. Now overlay that against youth unemployment. For the first time in modern economic history, the correlation flips. More education is correlating with less labor market access. Not more. That has never happened before. In every prior generation, a college degree cut your unemployment risk in half. For Gen Z, Holding a bachelor's now correlates with longer job search times than skilled trades. The credential inflated. The jobs deflated. AI ate the middle. So here's the verdict. Gen Z isn't lazy. Gen Z isn't entitled. Gen Z is the first cohort in modern history to walk out of the most expensive education system ever built and find the bottom rung of the career ladder sawed off. The data is unambiguous. Youth unemployment decoupled from adult unemployment in 2020. Labor force participation collapsed even as applications surged. Education spending peaked exactly as entry-level jobs vanished. This is not a generational character flaw. It is a structural break in how capitalism onboards humans. And until we admit that, we're going to keep blaming 22-year-olds for a machine problem. If you want more videos where we let the data destroy the narrative instead of the other way around, subscribe. No hot takes. No vibes. Just charts that answer the question. See you in the next one.